Something has gone quiet in you, and you have not decided yet whether to trust it. For years, there was a sound running underneath everything, a low, constant negotiating. You did not hear it because it never stopped. The way you stop hearing a fridge until the night it switches off, and the silence wakes you. That sound was you, making your case, explaining why you were upset in a way that would not seem too upset, softening a need until it could pass for a preference, reminding someone, gently, of the things you had done for them, hoping the ledger would speak for you since you could not say it plainly. That was the sound, and lately it has stopped, and the quiet is so unfamiliar that part of you keeps checking whether something is wrong. Nothing is wrong. You have simply stopped begging, and nobody warned you it would feel like this. Look at the first sign, because it happened before you noticed. You stopped over-explaining. Somebody asked why you could not come, and you said you could not come. No paragraph. No apology stacked on an excuse stacked on a promise to make it up to them. You used to hand people a whole legal defense for the crime of having a limit. Now you give them a sentence, and you let the sentence sit there, and you do not rush to fill the pause. That pause used to terrify you. It does not anymore. The second sign is that crumbs stopped tasting like meals. A message after 4 days of silence. A compliment offered on his way out the door. The kind of attention that used to hold you for a week now registers for what it actually is, which is very little, arriving very late. You are not bitter about it. You just have a working sense of proportion now, and a scrap no longer feels like being fed. The third is that you stopped presenting evidence. There was a version of you who used to argue for her own value, sometimes out loud, more often in her head at 2 a.m, building the case, listing the loyalty, the patience, the things you noticed and handled and never mentioned, assembling proof for a person who was never going to read it. You have put the file down, not because the evidence was weak, because you finally understood who you were preparing it for, and that he was never the judge of you. The fourth sign surprises women more than any of the others. You have become comfortable being the one who does not reply immediately. Not as a tactic. There is no clever timing, no counting hours to make him wait. Your phone simply stopped being a thing you carry in your hand. Someone will get a response when you have something to say, and you have stopped experiencing your own silence as rudeness that needs repairing. And the fifth sign is the strangest, and it is the surest of all of them. Almost being chosen has stopped being exciting. There was a time when a man's hesitation was practically an aphrodisiac. The maybe, the nearly, the sense that if you just held on a little longer or became a little more, the whole thing would resolve into a yes. It kept you awake and interested. Now, when a man is unclear, you feel something closer to boredom. That is not coldness. That is your nervous system finally telling the truth about what uncertainty actually costs you. None of this happened because you got hard. That is the fear, and it is worth answering directly, because a woman who has spent years being generous will police herself for coldness long before anyone else does. You still care. You still notice when someone in the room is struggling. What changed is that caring stopped automatically producing an offer, and noticing stopped automatically producing a rescue. There is a gap now between what you feel and what you do, and that gap is not indifference. It is judgment, and you have earned it the expensive way. There was a woman in Scripture who lived at the exact place where these two ways of being meet, and her name was Abigail. She was married to a man named Nabal. The text is unusually blunt about him. It says he was harsh and badly behaved, and she was a woman of good sense and beautiful. That is the household she woke up in every morning. A clever woman tied to a hard man, managing a life she had not chosen. Then David, hiding in the wilderness, sent men to ask Nabal for provision, having protected his shepherds all season. And Nabal insulted them and sent them away with nothing. David took 400 men and started down the mountain to kill every male in that house. A servant went to Abigail, because that is who people go to in a house like that, and told her what was coming. Now look at what she did, because every part of it matters. She did not go to Nabal to plead. She did not spend the afternoon explaining herself to a man who had never once listened. She loaded bread and wine and grain and figs onto donkeys, and she rode out to meet an armed man on a hillside. And when she reached him, she spoke. Not a scramble, not a grovel. She took the blame that was not hers. She told him plainly that Nabal was a fool, and then she said something remarkable. She told David that when the Lord had done all the good he had promised him, he would not want the weight of blood on his hands over this. She talked a furious man out of a massacre by appealing to the man he was going to become. David blessed her for it. He said her discernment had kept him from something terrible, and he sent her home in peace. She went back to Nabal that night and found him drunk at a feast, and she said nothing until the morning. Sit with the shape of that. She was not the loudest person in her house. She was not the one with the power. And yet nothing about her carriage that day belongs to a woman who was begging for anything. She was decisive. She was honest about the man she was married to. She spoke to power and was heard. 10 days later, Nabal died. And when David heard, he sent for her, and she became his wife. Notice the order, because it is the whole point of telling you this. She did not become dignified because a good man finally chose her. She was already like that on the hillside. In the marriage she could not escape, on the worst day of her year. The choosing came after, and it came because of who she already was. That is what is being built in you right now, in this quiet season where nothing seems to be happening. And be ready for a strange side effect, so it does not knock you sideways. Some people are going to like you less. The ones who benefited from your explaining, your quick apologies, your availability at short notice, will experience this new quiet as a personality change. A few will tell you that you have become distant or hard, or that you have changed. You have changed. That is the correct word for what has happened. And it is not an accusation, whatever tone it arrives in. You are a daughter of the king, and there is no version of a daughter who has to negotiate for a place in her father's house. He has never once required you to build a case. He did not wait to see whether you would be useful enough, and he does not measure you against the last man who failed to see it. There will be an evening, not far from now, when you notice that you did not perform once all day. You did not audition, or explain, or soften a true thing into something easier for someone else to hold. You will not throw a party over it. You will just notice, and go to bed, and sleep well. If one of those 5 signs is already showing up in your life, say which one in the comments. There is a woman reading tonight who will recognize herself in your words, before she can find her own.